Hello and welcome to the Locksmithdvd training program. The subject of this video lesson is storefront locks. Storefront locks are everywhere, so they are naturally a big part of the locksmith business. Storefront locks can be very lucrative and is an area of locksmithing that you will want to learn. Of course, it is impossible to teach everything about any given topic in one video. In this video course, we will be covering basic assembly and disassembly of standard storefront locks. For the most part, this work is easy to learn and will allow you to earn more money fairly quickly. This video is divided into 5 parts. Part 1, Tools and Storefront Locks. Part 2 will be our first example of a storefront lock with a flip latch and mortise cylinders. Part 3 will be a second storefront example, and it has a little different type of mechanism. Part 4 will be our third storefront example, and we will see a rim cylinder with a push bar on the inside. Part 5 is suggested practice. Okay, in servicing storefront locks, we don't need a whole lot of tools. For the most part, all I ever use is a small screwdriver and a little bigger Phillips screwdriver. But you will need a small flat blade screwdriver. And it'd be a good idea to file down on the sides so that the tip is even narrower still, because we're going to use that little screwdriver to get the set screws out. So you need a pretty narrow tip on that. Then we need a couple of Phillips screwdrivers, and occasionally you may need a bigger flat type screwdriver, flat blade, but for the most part, all I ever use on a storefront are these 2 screwdrivers. So in assortment of screwdrivers, you will come across set screws where you need an Allen wrench. So it's a good idea to have a set of Allen wrenches handy. Another kit that we're going to need. Now you may not use this for a year, but when you need this kit, it's a very handy kit to have. This is the HPC tap and die set, specifically made for storefront locks. Comes with instructions in it. This is the tap. Here's the die part. And then there's a piece here that will hold the mortise cylinder. You can put the mortise cylinder through and clamp that into a vise and hold it. Now, I'll show this more in a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and explain the other parts that we're going to need to be familiar with here, and then I'll show how this works. Okay, this is the basic hardware that you're going to need to be familiar with in servicing storefront locks. This is a standard flip bolt. This is the same except the bolt is shaped differently. It's a hook bolt. You can see how this hooks right here. This would be for where 2 doors slide together, or you have a sliding door type situation, and this hooks into either another door or to a fixed piece to secure it. This is a basic flip bolt piece here that you can see how this flips out. Let me get a hold of it here for you. Door swings back and forth. When you get the door in the closed position, the bolt flips out like so to secure the door. So, basic flip bolt. You can see there's 2 big holes in the side on either side of this. There's one right here, and then the other side. This is where the mortise cylinders will go. So it's very simple. The mortise cylinders simply screw in. There's 2 set screws here. One here and one here. One for the front cylinder, one for the inside cylinder. Simply screw the cylinder in. And you don't want to cross thread this. You want to just very carefully, and of course it's much easier here having this in my hand. When it's in the door and you may have a much tighter situation to try to get this started, it can be a little trickier. So always start by turning it counterclockwise until you kind of feel those threads seat in the threads where they're supposed to be, and then turn it in a clockwise position. Turn it counterclockwise till it seats, and turn it clockwise to screw it in as far as it needs to be screwed in. And then we simply tighten up this. We get it into where it's straight up and down, so the bottom of the keyway is like right at the 6 o'clock. There's a slot in the side of the mortise cylinder here where this set screw will screw into that and hold that. We simply turn that in, snug that up a little bit, and that will hold that so it can't be turned out. So that's the flip storefront lock mechanism and the mortise cylinder. Now, when you are actually putting these into a storefront, you want to have a guard, and there'll usually be a washer. Now, this is a wave washer. Sometimes it'll be just a flat washer, but oftentimes you'll have a wave washer that goes inside a guard, and then the cylinder goes in, and this guard protects this mortise cylinder so that the person could not simply grab this with a pipe wrench and twist it out, snap the set screw off and twist the cylinder out, and then use a screwdriver to flip the latch mechanism and open the door. When this is on here, if you put a pipe wrench on this, and this is tapered so it makes it a little more difficult to put a wrench on, but this will simply turn and protect the mortise cylinder. So that's the use of the guard. And then the wave washer will simply keep that from spinning around normally. It'll snug it up a little bit so that it doesn't just spin around. So this is a standard key type mortise cylinder. And normally most storefronts you come to will have one on each side with the key. But some storefronts may have a thumb turn on one side. On the inside, they don't want to have to use a key to lock the door. They want to be able to lock it quickly with just a thumb turn. So it goes in the same way, simply screws in and you tighten the set screw down, but it avoids using a key. The other possibility is that you don't want to be able to lock the door or unlock the door from the inside. In that case, we could put in a dummy cylinder, which would simply fill the hole, but wouldn't do anything to either lock or unlock the door. So those are the basic components of the storefront door. Now, the other type of cylinder that you will see, and I'm going to demonstrate this in one of our examples in this video, is the use of the rim cylinder. The rim cylinder it doesn't screw in. It has bolts that go in from the back to hold the mechanism in place. And you can see that these can be broken off, and we can adjust the length of this bolt for the situation that we have. But there'll be two bolts that will simply bolt this rim cylinder into the door, and there'll be a tail piece that we can use to have a mechanism on the inside to operate the latch from the inside. In the example that we're going to see, I'm going to show this rim cylinder with a push bar, which is a very common setup for commercial storefronts. And a push bar will turn the tail piece and open the door. Now, when you get on the job, you're going to come across sooner or later a situation where one of these threads, either the thread on the mechanism or the threads on your mortise cylinder, have been messed up. Person didn't get them in there straight, and they're cross-threaded, and you can't get it back in. And that's where we're going to use the tool I showed earlier, the tap and die set made by HPC, and simply straighten those threads out. If it's on the piece that's inside the door, simply standard procedure for tap and die, get some oil, put a little oil on there, start that into your into your threads and very carefully start it, and you're going to be able to start it and you're going to be able to straighten out your threads. Now, tap and die procedure, normally we'll turn that quarter turn and then we back it off. We don't just put it in there. Now these, of course, it'll turn easily into this once I get it started, but if it's not good threads, it won't. So normally we turn a quarter turn, back it off. Turn a half turn, back it off. Turn 3/4 turn, back it off. And so that as we back it off, it allows the metal pieces that could be biting off there to come back out and clear our threads out. So that's how we do the tap. If the mortise cylinder needs fixed, we use the piece I showed you earlier to hold the mortise cylinder. We put that in like that. We put that into a vise and squeeze that and hold that, and then we take our die, and the same thing, we put some oil on there, and then we simply get that lined up, and same procedure. Quarter turn, back it off, quarter turn, back it off, and so on. Of course, with this one here, once I get it started, it'll go right because the threads are not messed up. But that's where that comes in to play in that use of the tap and die. Okay, here's your typical storefront door we've talked about. We're going to take this lock out and rekey it. I'm not going to show the rekeying of it, but main purpose with this video is to show how to get the lock out and how the mechanism works and so on. So we can see this is just a typical mortise cylinder. In this case, it has the mortise cylinder with the keyway on both sides. Some of these doors will have a thumb turn or a dummy cylinder on the other side. Okay, I've picked this lock open. We had no key for it, so we had to pick it open. And you can see here, here's the mechanism. We have 3 screws on this plate here that we have to take out to get to the set screws that hold in the mortise cylinders. You can see on the inside of the door, there's also a keyed mortise cylinder, and there is an indicator as to if the lock is open or closed, locked or unlocked. Okay, the first thing we have to do is take these 3 screws out that hold this plate on the side of the door. This plate covers the set screws, as I mentioned. And we have 1 set screw for the front cylinder and 1 set screw for the back cylinder. Just loosen those up. Okay, once we have the set screw loose, just take a key blank, insert it into the cylinder. Not a key that works the cylinder, but a different key, and you can usually just unscrew the mortise cylinder with another key blank. And then this is the mortise cylinder. We've already looked at these in the shop. I'm going to take this and rekey this, put it back in. That's all there is to it. On the back comes out the same way. Simply unscrew the cylinder as we did on the front. Take it out. You can see the different rings and so on. Sometimes they'll be on this front one. There's a washer, and here's the guard that protects the mortise cylinder, and then there's a washer. Sometimes it'll be a wave washer. This is not a wave washer on this one, just a regular washer. So take those to the van, rekey those, and then I'll bring them back. We'll put them back on. Okay, now if we wanted to take this mechanism out, once the mortise cylinders are out, we can simply unscrew these screws and take this whole lock mechanism out. In this case, because there is an indicator on the inside of the door, the indicator will need to come off also. That'd be the next step, to take the indicator off and then to go ahead and take this out. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to go ahead and take this out. This mechanism is working fine, but just to illustrate how to go ahead and take it out, we'll do that. So first thing we need to do is, as I said, get this indicator. It's two Phillips screws. So you can see that this just slides up and down on the back as the latch opens and closes. It goes from locked to open. That's open, and then there's locked. So we take that out. Okay, once we have the indicator off the back, then we just loosen these screws up, and we can take the mechanism out. Now there is a pin that we have to get out that works the indicator. Right here. We just pull that out. Just comes right out. Once that pin's out, then the mechanism will just come out. So you can see this is all there is to it. It's very simple to work with. Just goes in. The pin just slides through this slot that works the mechanism. So if you have to replace that, you just take it out, pop in a new one. Now sometimes there'll be springs in here. The way this one here hooks on, which is really the nicest kind as far as being easy in working with the mechanism. There's a piece here that screws on. You can see the screw right here. This holds a bracket that the lock mechanism screws into. You got one at the top and one at the bottom. Not all doors have this. Some doors, there's a spring. There's a long screw. There's a long screw that goes through the lock with a spring on it, and it screws into the back part of the door frame. But this one here is really quite simple to work with. It just goes in just like that. Put the screws back in. Now you want to put these in kind of snug, but don't tighten them down real tight. Leave a little bit of play in there, usually until you get your cylinders back in. We'll usually make it a little easier. Okay, once we have this lock back in, we can go ahead and put our pin back in. Try to get a good picture of this. This is, and there's different ways that this is done, but on this particular lock, it just slides right through there, like so. We screw our cylinders back in. Put our indicator back on, be ready to go. We put our indicator back in. We have to just make sure that this pin is between these two pieces that stick out on the indicator. So just like so, and then put the screws back in, and that's very simple to put that back on. Put that screw in there. Get the other screw in, the bottom. Okay, so once we're ready to put the mortise cylinder on in, we just, best thing to do is turn it backwards a little bit, like counterclockwise, until you feel feel its seat into those threads. It should go in fairly easily. So once you got it lined up right, it'll screw in easily. But take your time to cross thread that. You may have to get your tools out and straighten the threads out. And I'll illustrate that in a moment, but for right now I just want to show how to put this in here. This one here is trying to do this with keep the camera on there was a little tricky, but here we go. I got it going now. So as I turn it counterclockwise, and then make sure that the threads seat, and go ahead and screw it in there. Now it comes around tight to right there. We want to turn it back to where the keyway is right in the 6 o'clock position, and that way the set screw will go right into the slot in the side of the cylinder to hold the cylinder securely. You know, if we were to put this cylinder in and get it cross-threaded, there's a couple of options. We can get a new cylinder, we can get a new locking mechanism and put in here, or we can simply try to straighten out the threads. And there's a tap and die set that is made just for this. HPC makes a nice little set that this is out of, and you can simply take your tap and go back in there and tap these threads and straighten them back out. So this is a tool that's really nice if you have one of these in your van, in case you get a situation like that, because sometimes if you're working on a mortise type mechanism that was expensive, $300, $400, $500 lock mechanism, then you couldn't just replace that. You could, but that's pretty expensive. So you'd want to just get your tap and go back in and tap those threads and get those straightened out and fix that lock mechanism. So that's how we deal with that. Same thing if we were to mess up the threads on the mortise cylinder, we could either replace it or we could rethread it with that same kit. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and screw that mortise cylinder back in. And again, you can just use a key blank or any key that's, just so it's not the one that turns the plug. You don't want to use that key. And they do make a tool that you can use for this, but you really don't need it. Get that turned around so that, again, that the plug lines up with 6 o'clock, and in that way the set screw will go right into the side of the cylinder and hold it securely. Okay, so we're going to put this other cylinder back in. Remember, this had the guard on it and it had the washer. So go ahead and just stick a key blank in there, get that up in there, and again turn the cylinder counterclockwise until you kind of feel it seat into the threads. Doesn't want to go in easily on this side, but there it goes. It's tight right there. You back it up again to the 6 o'clock position. It's not quite right there. Looks good at 6 o'clock, and then we'll tighten up the set screw. We'll go ahead and snug these other screws that hold the mechanism in. Then we'll try our key. make sure that the door locks okay, that mechanism works okay, and of course we'll try the other side also and make sure that it works. Then all we have to do is put the side plate back on, get the 3 screws that hold that, then try it again, and we'll be good to go on this job. So we have 3 small screws here. This is the bottom one. And then we'll do the top one. Now this one lines up real nice. Sometimes you need to leave them a little bit loose. Like, don't put any of them in tight until all three are started. Then go back and snug them up. This is a newer door and a newer mechanism, and everything still lines up real good. That's all there is to that. Again, once that's on there, again, check and make sure that it's working properly. And it is. Okay, I have some close-up pictures here of the lock mechanism. First, we can see the mortise cylinder. Then we can see the side of the lock mechanism with the plate on there and see the 3 screws we have to take out. We can see the mechanism with the plate off, the 3 screws removed and the plate off as to what it would look like. Then we can see the close-up with the 2 set screws that have to be loosened up to unscrew the mortise cylinders. The next close-up shows just the mortise cylinders out, and a close-up of the lock-unlocked indicator. And this last close-up is a picture behind the indicator that shows the pin that moves up and down to activate the indicator. And that pin just simply pulls out and just sits in there right behind the indicator. Please take just a moment to like the video and also subscribe to our channel. Thanks for watching.